Yes, it's exhausting. This whole topic, situation, scenario, events with an S, but documenting, calling out, and using the law is part of how we protect ourselves and slow them down. I'm thinking about the workplace. Those that are in the workplace, it's hard. It's very hard. And so I want to start with radical acceptance. I know I can't change you, and you can't change me. I'm not here to beg you to see racism. I'm here to document what you do with the power that you hold. The next one I want to talk about is gaslighting. When you say racism doesn't exist, you're not reporting reality. You're protecting a system that still burns churches and calls it no foul play. Another thing to do is name the law without false promises. The KKK Act, the church arson laws, the defamation of character law. These exist. They don't erase hate. They just gives us tools when we can prove conspiracy, violence, or lies. So this is why we keep receipts. Then you want to name the strategy. I won't waste my energy begging you to apologize. I'll put my energy into how I eat, what I buy, where I worship, who I fund, and how I document every move you make. Okay, I want to sum up the AI-assisted research that I am going to read here. Talks about radical acceptance and distance. And one thing is that when you are already doing the most powerful forms of self-protection is accepting that you cannot change racists or people who deny racism, only your responses and boundaries. You like apples, another person may like oranges, another person may like kiwi, somebody else may like lemons. We cannot change them or make them change their taste buds, which comes from the way they may have lived their lives, the people they've been around for many, many years. We cannot change people, but limiting contact with those who gaslight you by saying racism doesn't exist anymore or it's not that bad. Those, for me, I can speak for myself, are those that I watch the way I talk, I watch the way I move around them, I watch what I share around them, and I limit my energy that I give to these type of people. Choosing elevation over ad hominem, focusing on health, what you buy, what you build, and what you refuse to feed with your money and attention. This is emotional self-defense and strategic withdrawal, not weakness. It's so hard for me not to say that dumb motherfucker or fucking ignorant ass fool or, I use a lot of curse words. I use a lot of, gosh, they get on my goddamn nerves or something. But I try to to be honest with you, in the workplace, I don't attack people by those ad hominem type of words. I am very sarcastic. It's part of my makeup, part of my who I am. And when I do curse, it's formulated into jokes, and depending on who I'm talking to, we can back and forth like that or whatever. But for the most part, I don't use that because it's not going to go anywhere. I know I can't change that person, and they can't change me. So why waste my energy? A lot of times, yes, it eases some of the pain. It eases some of the, like, I can't believe this fucking fool type deal. But overall, when you really getting work done and you documenting and you have all your notes and your investigations and you're ready to present, to bury a mother, to tear it down, burn it down and do what you got to do. You got to, it's a way to get more powerful with that without the ad hominem. Okay, this second one here talks about Second Amendment versus speech and hate. The Second Amendment is about the right to keep and bear arms, not speech. It does not directly control what a president or anyone else may say. Speech is limited by the First Amendment's boundaries instead. So I got that all mixed up. The First Amendment does not protect true threats, real intent to harm, fighting words likely to provoke immediate violence, defamation, false statements or fact that harm someone's reputation. These categories can be punished or sued even when spoken by powerful people. So, there is no Second Amendment shield for racist speech, but there is very strong First Amendment shield that makes accountability harder unless you can show threat, incitement, or defamation. I'm not sure, but what I'm thinking here is that, and I know from my experience, you keep dates, times, the exact same things, the exact thing that someone says or does towards you and how it makes you feel, how mentally, psychologically, physically, when it's time to turn it in for you to sue and take it to someone that can represent you and give you all the facts with that. Okay, so I'm going to continue with the AI research that I've gathered here. And they talk about the Ku Klux Klan Act and black churches. And when two or more people conspire to deprive others of civil rights, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so I can imagine people on the opposite side of what you believe being upset for things like members of the Proud Boys. Here it says were ordered to pay more than $1 million for a racially motivated attack on Metropolitan AME, a historic black church in D.C., using the KKK Act, hate crime laws, and laws protecting religious property. So now don't think for 1 minute they're not going to take that law and reverse it on you. Right? Other tools alongside the KKK Act, federal law on church, arson, and attack on religious property with up to 10-year statutes. What is the statute of limitation in most of these cases? Because now, if you want to put it on the people that don't look like you, walk like you, talk like you, act like you, think like you, believe like you, now, what are the cases that did not get processed? And we can go back 10 years is the statute of limitation where they can be held accountable for their actions and taken to court to have cases against them. So, on and popping, like type deal. Civil suits for conspiracy, trespass, destruction of property, Continuing on with naming the law. And let me start with this first. The barrier, what it says up top, is not the law's existence, but resources, proof, and access to lawyers. Ding, ding, ding. Willing to fight. You got them ass-kicking lawyers. That's what you want. The ones that's ready to bend over backwards for you in the wrongdoing that you present to them, and they will fight and fight and fight for you. Defamation, abuse of power, and precedents. Defamation law allows people to sue when someone states false facts that seriously damage their reputation. I thought that and always thought that when people kept saying and joking about President Obama's First Lady, his wife, Michelle Obama, about being a man. That used to make me so sick to hear that. And that's seriously damaging to their reputation. I mean, they don't care, and they are thriving, and they are happy and beautiful people. But this is something that the defamation of law allows people to sue when someone states false facts. But when the target is a public figure, for example, like me speaking online, or a public activist, courts require actual malice. The speaker knew what they said and they knew what they said was false, or acted with reckless disregard for the truth. And that happens to a lot of people. That's, why you hear a lot of people saying allegedly, rather than attacking them. Yes, they did this and they're that way and blah, 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 blah. The bar is very high, especially for speech about politics or public issues. Presidents have argued, quote unquote, presidential immunity for things said while in office, but even Donald Trump has lost key pieces of that shield in defamation cases once courts decided he waited too long to raise immunity or acted outside protected functions. So when you pay attention to these cases, you look at yourself and what you're representing and how you're representing, and apply it to you as an individual or the group or the community that you're representing as well. Therefore, it goes on to say that so he can be sued and has been found liable for defamation and sexual abuse in civil court. But while in office, it is hard to hold him criminally accountable for, quote unquote, just words, unless they cross into incitement, true threats, or direct unlawful orders. It mentions here the Darville point that I mentioned is real. Powerful people often deny, attack, and reverse victim and offender, using defamation lawsuits themselves as weapons. Slaps, SLAPPS, to silence critics until anti-slap laws push back. Slap. That's definitely something I want to look into. Very interesting. You know what? Stuff like this is very annoying, and why you got to take the time out. But when it happens to you in the workplace or your neighborhoods or with family members or your friends or any type of relationship that you're in, it becomes difficult. And then when you are in your emotions or your reactions, it makes it even more difficult. And then you expect the person that's representing you, whether it's the union, whether it's EEO, whether it's OIG, whether it's a lawyer that you hire, whether it's one that's appointed to you, to be able to know, it takes that muscle, to build that muscle every day of learning and unlearning, learning more stuff that affects you as an individual or interests you as an individual, or things that, that interest you. And so you're able to help guide the person that is representing you, and you're not just dumping a bunch of anger onto them, a bunch of stuff on them where they have to go through everything you're saying and pick out what will stick and will not stick. Okay, moving along. Smart resistance instead of begging. Where's my glasses? I left my glasses. So legal supporting organizations that file the KK Act and church arson in cases track statutes of limitations and build evidence for attacks on Black churches and Black institutions. Economic minimizing purchases, fundraisers, Black business. Health, food, learning to grow, cook, and create what you can. So dependence is reduced, and they have less leverage over your body and mind. Something so small and teeny weeny is that, say, for example, cleaning my clutter and getting rid of stuff. I noticed, notes everywhere, and I had did this thing to where it's something that I need and I want for me, as far as journals and this and that or whatever. And instead of buying them, and I have so many, for example, 5-subject notebooks, so many journals that I buy from many different stores, but it's nothing that fits me. So now I want to look into how to create them myself, whether I sell them, whether I don't, but it's going to be something made for me by me. And, getting into that with also learning how to grow, maybe, not everything, but at least 1 or 2 things, some rosemary, some this, some that, and purchase from those that do the same thing, and have it cycling that way, rather than begging and depending on other people. Narrative documenting every micro and macro attack. So there is a record where they Okay, next. Okay, something else I added to this because I'm thinking something else as well. You know, I'm pretty old and I know certain things. And when I talk, I don't mean all. I never mean all. But I did make, it says you are naming a hard truth. Some people, including immigrants and other marginalized groups, will join and reinforce anti-Black systems to protect themselves, gain proximity to power, or out of internalized anti-Blackness. Radical acceptance here means stop expecting solidarity from everyone who is also oppressed. Watch who they stand with when there is a cost, not just who they look like. Some of the things are said is all kinfolk ain't skinfolk or something like that they say. Or another one is I often talk about blind unity. You know, they're going to use the Bible to get you lured in. They're going to use words that deal with God in the Bible to lure you in. They will use the word, you know, things like humble and submissive and all types of things to lure you in so you don't see. Some of the laughter and the jokes that you love about people, they will lure you in. I think from my experience, I can only talk about my experience. If like what I do is I stick to what I have learned from clinical psychologists, from coaches, from, just people that are teaching from their experiences, whether it's with educational background or without a educational background. I stick to those personalities, those behaviors, and some backstories play a huge role. Personalities and behaviors, and then that good old quote from Maya Angelou, once they show you who they are, believe them. And continuing learning every single day in how not to stay in certain relationships that feel harmful, and learning how to protect oneself. You know, you learn certain behaviors and you're like, but they're going to keep coming at you real hard, or even subtle. You know, those hidden subtle ways. But once the more and more you learn, you're going to see them, you're going to feel them. You're going to make mistakes. That's normal because you're learning. You know, but you're willing to learn. You're willing to put your feet out there. You're willing to not be like some of these people or some of these behaviors that we have been taught many, many years. It ain't easy. Pimping ain't easy.